John, we met you on our worst day of our lives. As it turns out, it was a blessing in disguise. Kathy remembers you telling her, we will need someone to take notes for us because we will not remember everything that's being said. Kathy thought to herself, why? We'll never forget. Someone just told us our son was no longer alive. You appeared in that very small room at Baylor Hospital to walk us through our new life. You knew what we needed before we could think of it. You guided us through impossible decisions. You were the face we saw when we had no clue what was next in the process. You were the person that made us feel comfortable on a day when we had no idea what was next. In the early hours of the morning of February 13th, 2021, you instructed us on the next steps of our journey, where to go, what was going to happen next, all while constantly asking us how we were doing at every turn. Kathy told you while we were staying in a hotel because we had lost power in the February 2021 storm that you were made for this job, that God knew exactly where you needed to be, here, with the families of fallen officers. You possess the experience, patience, and comfort for us when we were crying on numerous days. You were 100% right. We don't remember everything. We don't even remember how we got home from the coroner's office that morning. We can't imagine getting through those days without you. You knew everything that we needed to do, where we needed to be, and how to get the things done when we were out of our home for weeks. It was 10 days from the time we learned Mitchell had died until we laid him to rest at Restland. You were there every day for anything we needed and that shoulder for us to always be able to lean on. Our brains have a way of protecting our minds in an unexpected, traumatic death of our son. You, John, have a way of protecting and guiding mourning families to where we are today. Kathy and Tim Penton, parents of Mitchell Penton, end of watch 2/13/2021.
Probably one of the things I learned I learned a lot in all my positions that really helped me with my job now, but one of the things I learned was I don't have to be in a hurry. And so I'll tell my families at the hospital, we have one decision to make. We don't have to make it today. We got to make it in the next 24 to 48 hours. And that's to decide on a funeral home. I had been in the unit to coming up on 2 years. Foy was my lieutenant at the time, and he called me at 1:30 in the morning and said, hey, we've got a deceased officer. I said, we're at Baylor. So you get up, get dressed, you start running through your checklist of what you need. You never know what you're going to run into at the hospital. And get to the hospital, and Mitchell had been dead probably for about an hour, and they had him in a room. Most of the hospitals have a room where you can view the body. And as I walked in, they were getting ready to go in and view Mitchell. And you just walk in and you tell them who you are, and you give them a business card, and you say, I'm here. We're going to get to know each other a whole lot better. And then you just kind of start walking them through it.
I don't know what I heard on the radio, but I think I heard that 3 officers were shot. And so he got up, but then I went to the hospital to be with everyone. And there were 3 stars there, there were 2 stars there. There was brass all over the place, but there was no question who was in charge of that scene. And that was my dad.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal,
And we can learn from those mistakes.
and together we can bridge the divide.
There are some people who spend a career enforcing the law. And then there are those who spend a lifetime serving people. For more than 40 years, he has worn the badge, not just as a symbol of authority, but as a commitment to help wherever he was needed. From patrolling the streets of Dallas to working cases as a detective and back again, his career has never been about titles or assignments. It has always been about people, about showing up, about doing the work that matters, no matter where it takes him. Ask anyone who knows him, and they won't start with his resume. They'll tell you he's a kind person, a helper, the kind of person who leans in when others step back, the kind who listens longer, stays later, and quietly carries burdens that aren't his to carry. After 30-plus years of helping victims, he now helps fellow officers. He stands with those transitioning out of the badge, guiding, retiring, and resigning officers through what comes next, and preparing them and their families for realities most people would rather avoid discussing. It's not glamorous work. It's not easy work, but it is deeply important work, and it takes someone with a true servant's heart to do it well. For the past 7 years, he has served in one of the most difficult and meaningful roles in the department, as the Family Services Officer. When tragedy strikes, when an officer is injured, falls ill, or passes away, he is there. Not just as a representative of the department, but as a steady presence in the middle of chaos and grief. He walks alongside families in their darkest moments, helping them navigate the unthinkable with compassion, dignity, and care. He also continues to support the families of honorably retired employees who have passed, ensuring that they are not forgotten. Grounded in a strong faith and shaped by his time at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, his life reflects a calling far beyond a career. At his core, he's a family man, devoted to his own and deeply committed to the families he serves every single day. Today we're honored to sit down with a man who has spent 4 decades not just protecting a community, but caring for it in its most vulnerable moments. Jon Lumbley, badge number 5230, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Now, you've said here that it's not Jonathan or John with an H, it's Jon.
It's Jon, absolutely.
What does that come from?
So my mom was Cecilia, and my dad was Herschel, and so they didn't want their kids to have to spell long names. So they named my brother Lee, Lee, and I'm John, Jon.
Well, makes sense to me. I wish I'd have thought of that. Put my kids at the front of the class. Before we get too far, I've got Joe King with me today. I'm Kent Wolverton, and we have Jon Lumbley 1 is who we know him as on the department's email because that's how we do things. But is it the second? Are you junior?
So not a junior, but I am John, spelled the same way without the H. And as you were saying, talking about your kids spelling their name a certain way, I'd like to add that if you take the H out of John, you have to explain it to everyone every time when your first name comes up. So you take that risk when you go Jon.
There's trade-offs for sure.
I probably accidentally emailed you on some things looking for your dad.
Definitely.
I don't know why there's a one after you. Well, can you tell, since you got you, can you tell the listener where you work now?
Yeah. So I'm a sergeant in the assaults unit. I've been on the department for about 13 years now. Been there for about 2 years. Loving it.
What's your badge?
10455. 5 numbers away from being double.
Wow.
5230. My classmate actually had double his badge number.
Nice. Where did you start? Southeast?
Southeast, yes.
Good man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where you started too, isn't
Absolutely.
it? John Sr.?
Yeah.
Do we call you John Sr. or OG John, or how do you guys differentiate it?
Dad.
I'd say you could probably call me JC because while my name is John, my middle name is Christopher, and my mom and dad decided to call me JC instead because if my mom was yelling Jon Lumbley, we had to know which one of us she was mad at.
Yeah.
So
and it could be either, right?
It could be. Yeah. So I go by JC.
All right. So John Sr. here. Let's get started. You grew up out in East Texas, huh?
Well, I grew up all over Texas. I was born in Waco, went halfway through high school in Pasadena, and then halfway through my junior year, we moved to Longview. That's where I graduated from high school, Longview Lobos, and went to college in Kilgore Junior College.
So you touched just about every corner of Texas trying to grow
I did.
up.
Hadn't been out west. Didn't go out west,
Yeah.
but
That's a lot of moving in long ways. Longview, though, that's a beautiful town.
love it. Just absolutely love it. Would move back there tomorrow, except I've got 40 years here now, and I'd be coming to Dallas.
That's a heck of a drive, yeah.
2 or 3 times a
No,
week.
but they those Lobos like to put a whooping on my boys every year. We got them this last year though.
Yeah.
We got them at home too at their place, so that was
Yeah.
extra sweet. But man, they're gonna have a stout football team again.
Yeah.
They keep kids out there, and that
Yeah,
East Texas
they
strength.
feed them Wheaties.
They feed them something. I'll
Yeah.
tell you,
Yeah.
they're a different breed out that way. It's fun to go though. What about Kilgore College?
So went to graduated from high school the summer after I graduated. So let's get started with college, and started at Kilgore Junior College. Got an associate's degree in criminal justice, the winner of all degrees, and then started applying for agencies. Applied with Pasadena, which is where I had lived all those years. And they told me I was too young, and rejected. Didn't get hired. Said I needed a little bit more time underneath my belt. And right around that same time, I had applied with DPD, and they wanted me to quit my last semester of school and come on, just like they do now. You know?
No, it's hurry up and get here, right?
Yeah,
So you hired on with Dallas at 20.
Correct.
And that was in 1985.
correct.
So that's 41 years now.
Thank you so much for reminding me.
I went to public school, so you got to check my math, but I'm pretty sure that's 41 years of service.
It'll be 41 in June.
That is incredible. Have you found a drop dead date yet, or are you just going to stay until you get tired of it?
Yes. October of 29 would get me to be 65, which would get me out of paying city insurance.
Uh-huh.
As long as I'm doing what I'm doing or having fun what I'm doing, I don't really have a date.
All right. Well, we'd love to keep you around as long as you want to stay. Now, you mentioned in your bio here that, number one, you hired on at 20 years old. Were you 20 years old when you got out of the academy, or was that 21?
I turned 21 my first night on the street. So you graduate, then you spend Monday and Tuesday in orientation, and then my first night was a Wednesday, the Tuesday night for Wednesday, and Les South was my first trainer on late nights.
So they sent you straight to deep nights on your first rotation.
I mean,
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Yeah.
That's right.
21. And you mentioned that you were a little young and a little bit gullible for a few years out there in
Yeah, I
Southeast.
grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Pasadena and Longview. Graduated from high school, never had really had any major obstacles in my life. And so hiring on, I remember the first drunk person, like stupid drunk, I'd ever been around was when I was 14, and probably not another one till my first night on the streets.
Yeah. So was Pasadena the only other place you looked at?
Yeah.
And why did you go with either Pasadena or Dallas?
Well, I went with Pasadena because that's where I had a lot of family or a lot of friends. Dallas, I don't really remember why I did. They came to our school and recruited, and so I had the information right in front of me and applied. And really, I mean, it was really pretty seamless project to get in, or not project. What word am I looking for? Process to get in.
What exactly was it like applying?
I don't think there's really not been any changes. Your oral history, or your history, your physical. I think they maybe even still use the same physical, the strength, the hand strength, the mile. Nothing really changed.
Do they still use the big paper packet, or can we finally use something online?
It's online now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was online
Yeah.
back then, but you had to print it out, which was a pain because home printers weren't exactly great when I was starting, so I could imagine.
And I don't even think they take paper anymore.
Good for us. Look at us saving the environment.
Yeah. When my chaplains applied to the department, they have to go through the same background check a recruit does. And I believe theirs is all electronic.
I hope we've advanced that far.
Yeah.
Whatever we're doing it well because the academy's full.
Yeah.
And it's pumping people out, so we're doing
good.
something right over there. How long was the academy?
17 weeks.
17 weeks. That's almost what we have now.
Yeah, I think it's about.
Yeah, we're at 40, I think.
Oh, are we at 40?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say it's changed so much now that he could count it in weeks. Well, we count it in months now. It's so much longer.
So what is that? 4 months?
Right about 4 months? We started June, and we're out in October.
So was that fun starting the academy in June with all the physical training? And
so we
going
ran
all
that.
summer?
We were at the old academy at Bachman Lake.
Mm-hmm.
You ran the lake every day. Physical fitness was my downfall then, and still a little bit now. And that was the one place that I really struggled in the academy, and that's what I'd tell anybody that was applying now was, hey, that's something you can control. If you're in bad shape, you got a lot more work. But
Right.
if you can beat the academy or beat the physical part, that's one less thing you have to worry about in the academy.
Do you remember anybody from the academy as far as the instructors?
Art Lozano was our class coordinator. John Allen was the sergeant. Martinez, I don't remember his first name, but Lieutenant Martinez was our lieutenant at the time. A lot of stories back then.
Yeah.
With the command staff.
What kind of stories you got?
Probably ones that don't need to be on the podcast.
Statute of limitations may or may not be over.
Yeah, well, there's some good ones then.
Some of the rules that apply to the academy now were created in Class 190.
So it was Class 190.
It was, yeah.
Did you guys have a class motto back then?
If we did, I have forgotten.
Sounds like you remember. You just don't want to say it. I get it. Sometimes they're a little embarrassing. What about you, JC? What class motto?
Class 330, strength, honor, integrity, came as many, leave as one. You say it every day, a million times a day. You can't forget it, right?
It's stuck in your head for sure. Okay, so any classmates still around? Is anybody else stuck around?
Yeah, Pearl McDowell, who works in she works Open Records, I believe, and she left the department. She came here from another agency, did 10 years, left, finished out her retirement there, and then came back, and is here now.
So another servant that just has to serve.
That just has to serve. That's right.
I get it. So you said you struggle with the physical portion of the academy. Was the academic portion okay?
I guess. I think I failed one test, which for me is pretty good.
Yeah. So the first one usually gets everybody,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you don't know what you're walking into, and then after that you're like, oh, okay, now I know how it goes.
Yeah.
You figure out what you need to study and how they do their test stuff,
Yeah.
which not too difficult. But if you don't pay attention, you don't study, you're definitely gonna have a
And I
problem
think
with that
that's
test.
probably my part is I'm not the best studier in the world, and so like you said, until you get an idea of what's going on.
Well, when you're 20 years old, there's so much other stuff to do.
Yeah.
You know, why would I want to sit around and study something?
Yeah.
Too much studying in school. I want to get out.
Yeah. After listening to your podcast, your academic life and my academic life sound just about right.
It was a problem. It really was, because high school was so easy for me that I didn't have to hardly study at all. Like if I was sitting in class and you said something, I'd remember it. But then in college, they were like, well, you don't have to go to class. So I was like, I'm not going to class. Then I'd show up and there's a test, man. Oh, horrible. I kind of wish somebody kept a thumb on me, but at the same time, I really enjoyed the time that I had there. So
Some lessons have to be learned the hard way.
yeah, no, for sure. For sure. And I definitely learned them because, yeah, once you figure out how to study, it makes everything else super easy. You're married.
Married for the second time. Was married to JC and my daughter's mom for 32 years. And unfortunately, that marriage dissolved and got remarried in 2022 to the lovely Michelle.
Now, were you married before you joined the department, or was that after?
I got married a year and a day after I hired on.
You really like flirting with that line there, huh? Birthdays and all sorts of stuff just line up for you. Now, you ended up studying at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So, accepted Christ when I was 14, so I've been a Christian most of my life. In high school, dabbled a little bit with maybe wanting to going into ministry. Police work since I was 4 has been what I wanted to do. So there was never really anything else. High school, I kind of dabbled with maybe doing some ministry stuff. Didn't pan out, and so it was full on, hey, we're going to go into police work. Got my associate's degree, wasn't the best student, but got the degree, got hired on. And in 97, Chess Williams brought me up to family violence as a detective. And one of the great things working in family violence then was they said, we don't care what hours you work. You do your 8 hours. Come in early, go home, or come in early, come in late, just do your 8 hours. Well, that enabled me, we had 2 children at the time, and that enabled me to pick 1 or 2 days a week that I could go to class. There really wasn't a desire for me to get a degree in anything else. So stumbled onto Southwestern's website. They had the degree where you can put life applied hours towards it, and ended up in a degree in Christian education from Southwestern.
And that'll come into play here a little bit, huh?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well let's backtrack a little bit here. You graduated from the academy and sent to Southeast in 1985. What happened at Southeast? How'd you love it?
So we graduated 39 in our academy class, and 2 out of that 39, they only gave you 3 on the wish list then. We didn't have North Central and we didn't have South Central. So out of the 5, you got to pick 3. And I picked Northeast, Central, and Northwest. And myself and one other person didn't get any of our 3 picks. And I remember Art Lozano, when we got our list, and you go over the wall and look, see where you're going. And Art said, "Well, where are you going?" And I said, "Southeast." And he did the cross over me and said, "Well, God bless you."
So who else was there at Southeast when you got there?
I was trying to think that the 2 I can think, or 3, a guy named J.R. Wilson, Nancy Webb, and Marta Gomez. J.R. left an apartment, and Marta became a PSO, and Nancy, of course, had 26 or 30 years when she left here.
And what kind of reputation did Southeast have back then?
Probably the same it has now. I think it was the same when you went to Southeast.
Yeah, it was the same when I went there in 2013. It was God's country, and you were from Southeast or you weren't, and Southeast or any other substation.
Oh, yeah. I remember telling my classmates and, people afterwards, you ain't real police if you didn't work at Southeast.
Well, it's like how you asked the question, how'd you love it?
Yeah.
It's like,
there's only one way, right?
That's
you
right.
either love it or you don't.
That's right.
And there's some people that just really don't like it there, and I understand it. It's not for everybody. But I think that's every patrol station. There's a little bit of needling, it gets under everybody else's skin when we talk about Southeast. So you gotta pour it on just a little bit extra for them.
Mm-hmm.
Even Chief kind of spoke about it the last time. He said I'm really getting sick of you Southeast guys, which lets us know it's working.
That's right.
In the 80s, what kind of work did you get into?
I was looking back. I worked late nights. Not my whole time at Southeast, but for 3/4 of my time at Southeast. And you came in, they were always holding calls. So your first 2, 3, 4 hours were clearing up calls. And then the cool months, it would slow down a little bit. You could do traffic stops, and I never really focused in on one thing. If anything, it would have been probably answering calls.
Yeah. Well, we've mentioned it before. It's like an ecosystem, right? You've got your guys that answer the calls. You got your guys that love working traffic accidents. You got your guys that love chasing stolen cars.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure back then there was a ton of stolen cars, especially late nights in Southeast Dallas.
And GM products.
They just removed that ignition right out of there.
Yep.
You had mentioned that you were involved in an encounter. Was that during your first term at Southeast?
Yeah. So February of 1987, I was working a special assignment looking for stolen cars with Dale Mercer, who's no longer with us. We jumped Firebird coming off of R.L. Thornton Freeway at Longview and tried to pull him over, and the chase was on. Drove through Pleasant Grove. At one point, he ran into somebody's yard, and Dale bails out to get him. And the guy backs over Dale. And the reason why Dale didn't get hit was because he saw him coming and jumped back in the car. Chase continued on and went out to roughly 20 and Dowdy Ferry and got into some of those back roads. And by that time, 2 other officers had gotten involved in the chase, and they were lead car. And suspect pulled into a field that we didn't know was closed off, and we ended up closing it off. And the other 2 officers got out of the car and approached the car from behind. And Dale was trying to run across, because we knew he was going to bail. It was a stolen car, right?
Right.
And so Dale cut across the front of him, and the guy hit Dale. And all I remember was Dale being on his back. Dale was a former college football player, and Dale was on his back and had his feet up against the bumper of the car, and the guy was pushing Dale. And then 3 of us ended up shooting and taking the guy's life.
Now, we talked about it offline a little bit. Dale had been knocked down, right? He fell down in front of the car.
Correct, yeah.
And then he had his feet up on the bumper of the car,
Uh-huh.
and the car was still pushing him backwards.
Correct.
And there was a part about the handle of the gun that you mentioned.
Yeah, so when Dale was on his back, and I remember looking at the photos, Dale had grass stains like you would see if you were dragged on the grass, where his shoulders were as it was pushing him back. And Dale carried is when we could carry larger bore guns, and Dale was carrying a .44 Magnum. And Dale's gun got bent down into the dirt, and so it clumped up probably an inch or two of grass on the butt of the gun before he was able to roll out it from by the side of the car.
So being involved in a shooting back then, what was the procedure after that?
So I remember when I was on training, Bill Darr, who was my supervisor on training, said, if you ever get involved in a situation, get on the radio, declare an emergency, tell them what you got. That's exactly what I did. Went back to the car, declared the emergency. Air One was over us and saw the whole thing happen. We got together. Sergeant got out there, told us to be quiet and not talk about what happened, and that's what we did. Capers gets out there. We did a walkthrough at the time. We did walkthroughs.
Just immediately afterwards?
Just immediately afterwards. And then we went downtown, came down, wrote our dear chiefs, our statements, and then we were done.
Then it was thanks. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, they gave us the day off. They had instituted the day off then, which at the time I thought was good, and I still think a day off is. But I on my day off, then I went into 5 days off, and I was working a part-time job, and I think that probably then I thought it was a good thing. I think I probably should have been around my peers quicker than I was.
Now, you had 5 days off. Was that a planned vacation or?
No, it was. I was working a part-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of back and forth with, should officers be home for 3 days or should they come back and maybe be in the station? Having been left on my own when I probably shouldn't have been for way too long, I get that side of it, right? But also I know that not everybody deals with things the same way I do.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a true line of how we should handle those. And I think we're missing the mark right now because it is a solid, hey, now it's 3 days off, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to take 3 days off, but you can take more, but you can't come back sooner.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of isolation, it feels like, when you're at home, especially after something like that. It almost feels like a punishment.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how to get it to not feel like a punishment. That's one of the things we've got to work on as a profession, to figure out how we actually handle different people, because we're all individuals, right? We all handle things differently, and there should be maybe options of how you should handle these things. And I think having a blueprint for how you handle it is missing the mark.
Yeah, and I think that some of that should be left up to the discretion of the officer. The problem with bringing them back too early, or one of the issues is being able to keep your mouth shut.
For sure.
And how you can convince a young officer, because I was 21, maybe 22. Yeah, I was 22 when it happened. Teaching a young officer, when somebody walks up and says, "Hey, man, you okay?" or "What happened?" Can't talk about it. And you shouldn't.
Right, but everybody wants to know.
But the natural response is to talk about it.
And everybody's going to ask you.
Yep.
And then they all want to know, and if you don't tell them what happened, then they tell you what happened, right?
Yeah.
They fill in their story, so that's always fun. But yeah, I think maybe there's a middle ground somewhere in there where we fix that a little bit, and maybe in years to come we'll get a better grasp on how to handle those.
Yeah, and I feel like when it's a clearly justified shooting, the response can be different too from when it's, hey, maybe a little shaky, kind of in the gray.
Yeah.
And so if you're isolated at home, replaying it over and over in your head, not knowing, did I make the right decision? Just questioning yourself and wondering, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my freedom?
Yeah.
That can even play a bigger role.
Ton of stuff running through your head after that, and just being by yourself. Sometimes that's not the best thing in the world. I think that allows a lot of weird thoughts to creep in, and but again, how do we know how individuals handle it? That's maybe we'll come up with a better way to handle it. But there was no wellness unit, or there was no 3-day policy then. So you took your 5 days and then you came back to work.
Yeah, we had there was a policy that said, and that it's still there, that you have to go see somebody in psych services. And I went to see, actually, one of my classmates had come into the department with a master's degree and was a counselor, and so she had already been moved over to that position. And so I went in and saw her, and she said, "How are you?" And I said, "Fine." And she said, "Do you have any issues?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Okay, have a good day."
Just to check the box.
Check
quick.
the box. Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Yeah. And what I know now about critical incidents is you got to spend more time than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And you got to have a willing part. Your client or the person that's there has to be willing to talk about stuff.
Yeah, not under coercion of, hey, you need to get back to your job. So, there's no paycheck without time served, right? So you got to get back in there and start going to work. In retrospect, what would you do different?
The night of the shooting or just in general?
Afterwards.
I don't know. That's a good question. So our shooting was in the midst of a pretty tough political time in Dallas.
That's weird.
Yeah. And they had, between our shooting and we went to the grand jury about 6 months later, they asked us if we wanted to testify, and the word then from our defense attorneys was, let's not testify. And about, we knew the grand jury was meeting. We came into work one night, and the chief was there. The deputy chief, Ray Hawkins, was there. And he said, which didn't happen on late nights.
Yeah, they usually don't show up too often.
Usually don't show up. And he said, guys, we need to go have dinner. So we jumped in the car and went up to the Waffle House there at Jim Miller and 30. Classing it up.
What else is open, right?
He sat down and he said, we were with our lieutenant, and he sat down with the three of us. He said, "Guys, I think y'all are fixing to get indicted."
Yeah. Pass the syrup.
Yeah.
What do you say? You're a brand new officer trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
And they hit you with you looks like you're going to be indicted.
Yeah. And listening to your story brought back all those memories. Sounds like almost the same ordeal. And so they sent us home. It was nice of them. They sent us home on an administrative day. And after having talked to our counsel, he said, "Well, maybe you ought to testify." So we went in and testified, and they've tied to indict. I think out of 12, you got to have 9 to indict. Like 2 of them were out, and 1 or 2 of them said no bill. So it tied. But a tie goes to the defendant, so we were no billed. And then around our shooting and after our shooting, lots of controversial shootings at a Collins. And so about 2 years later, they put together a congressional hearing and brought some guy from D.C. and the DPD's killing people left and right. And so they sent it to the grand jury a second time. And we went and testified a second time. But it was 100% no bill on that one. So a little sense of relief after that.
Did you feel like you were better prepared the second time?
Yes and no. I was better prepared because I knew what to expect.
Right.
I was also better prepared to know what the consequences would be.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
That definitely doesn't help.
What was the time difference between the first grand jury meeting and the second one?
Probably a year, maybe 2. Yeah, and I don't know if it was the second. I think it was probably just the shooting, but it may have been the second grand jury. Really, for lack of a better term, effed with me.
Yeah.
And I got to where, so then we didn't have, PS wouldn't come do dusting on vehicles, or, if you had a burglary or something. This little sidelight. And so somebody got assigned to it. And I was junior man in my sector, so guess who got assigned to it? And I remember now knowing it was part of the process, but I remember getting angry going to those calls and having to process other people's stuff. And I remember going to burglary calls and just being enraged by somebody's getting their house burglarized and I'm having to deal with it. And I needed a break out of patrol.
Yeah.
And I got it. Was able to go over to the park unit and spend 6 months just kind of decompressing. But it really messed with me.
So again, that's a little look into how it affects people differently, right? And the burglary calls and the fingerprinting didn't have anything to do.
Nothing.
But somehow that's where your anger would manifest, right? And that's how you were dealing with that. It's interesting how the brain does weird things like that.
And nobody picked up on it.
Yeah. Well, were you aware at that time? Did you think maybe this is what's going on, or were you just like, I can't stand this?
I couldn't put A and B together, but I could certainly see that post-shooting there were issues in my life that I didn't understand why I was doing them.
How did you ever come to figure that part out?
So over the course of my career, I've done some mental health stuff. CICM trained, so I've done a lot of debriefings, taken lots of classes, in-service classes, and just kind of figured out, hey, that's why I was so freaking mad at everybody.
So it's weird to me sometimes how everybody sits through the same classes usually, right? Or even if it's one of those one-off classes that you get to go to, and you sit there and you're internalizing it, and you're starting to say, okay, well, that makes sense to me. What are the chances that you signed up for that class and that it reaches out to you and it touches you? There's probably 30 or 40 other people in the class that don't have any relation to it, that don't figure that stuff out. They're just sitting through the class, but somehow you're in the right place at the right time to figure that stuff out.
Yeah, to hearing the right wording.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and then to be cognizant enough to be like, hey, that's exactly what's going on with me, right? Like, kind of weird how you're reading my mail right now.
Yeah.
So you went from Southeast Patrol, you got a 6-month stay over at the parks,
and then came back, spent about 6 months, maybe a year in deployment, and then the senior corporal rank came about, and it forced. They had to start making decisions about if you were a PO, if you were going to stay in a non-PO position. So they sent me back to the streets, and I got promoted off the first written test after the original promotions.
Is that when you went to youth?
Yeah, I did. You had to do a year in patrol, and then I went to youth in mid-91.
How did youth look at that time?
So it looked totally different than we have now. We had a runaway squad. We had detectives out the wazoo. We had probably 8 detectives on. So we had 2 watches. We had 8 detectives on my watch, and then 2 or 3 runaway detectives. So you had 15 or 20 detectives, 2 sergeants, a lieutenant over just youth operations.
They don't have that now.
No.
It's amazing how we used to staff the bureaus back then.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also been a huge rise in just 911 calls, right? The police are called for everything, even the people that swear they'll never call the police. As soon as something happens, they end up calling the police. And in the city of Dallas, if you call 911, you're pretty much going to get a police response. It doesn't matter if it necessarily needs one. You're probably going to get one. And that's one of the arguments we have, is that we respond to way too much stuff that is not a police issue, but it's another thing we need to fix.
For sure. 50s are a thing of the past now.
Yeah.
Bizarre. I mean, working Southeast Third Watch, I didn't really understand what that was either. It was, shove as much food in your face as you can, as fast as you can, and get back to work. So what is it about youth that's different than most other divisions?
When I went through, so we handled prisoners. We filed all the cases on the department. with the exception of things like murder, in family stuff. If a kid did it, we would file it. So it's quite a bit of paperwork. We were using direct entry at the time, so you had to type out your prosecution reports. The thing that helped me with working in operations was we had great latitude in what we could get involved in. And so my sergeant, Tim Gargani, would say, hey, if you want to learn how to do X, Y, and Z, go to it. And so I would go up to capers, and they would sit down with me and let me take statements, let me interview suspects. So it was a whole lot more time to learn the job in a much less stressful environment. Because guys in capers, JC will tell you, man, they get hammered with those cases, and you just had a lot more time to be able to investigate cases.
Well, especially in the early 90s when all the Jamaican drug wars were going on. I mean, it was capers and as a whole was underwater.
Yeah.
Got any cases that stand out?
You know, I was looking, made a few notes. I worked a murder. A child was sitting in his den on Culver Street, and somebody walked by the house and shot into the house and killed the kid. Kid ended up dying a day or two later, died that night. And we had gotten involved in it, and at the time, homicide said, well, it's yours. And so Nick Earwood and I started working on it, and interviewed what we thought was the suspect, and it wasn't. So we kept digging and ultimately found the suspect and put him in jail, and he took a conviction. That's the only murder I've ever worked. But I worked a murder, worked a legitimate kidnapping out of Parkland Hospital. Lady walked in and
Took a baby,
and that's where I learned I didn't work with other federal agencies very often, but we called the FBI, and they had 14, 17 detectives at the hospital within 2 hours. And we jumped in a car and drove out to East Texas and got some information on the suspect and ended up getting the baby. Somebody, I think in Shreveport, a girl came home and said, hey, look at my new baby. And
there was no relation. It wasn't like a family deal. Wow.
No. And if I remember right, it was a juvenile. She was like 16 or 17. And she walks into the house and says, Mom, look at my baby.
She clearly didn't know the adoption process.
No.
You just go pick one out you like at the hospital?
Yeah, at the hospital. Yeah.
Was that a long day at work?
It was a long day at work. That was one of those 24-hour overtime cards in one day. Yeah.
No one gets to go home till the baby's
found.
Till
the baby, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's just chilling. When you think about it.
Oh yeah.
As a new parent, even with a second or third kid, you really don't know what the procedure is, and all of a sudden your baby is gone from the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. And every time I walk into a hospital now, I'm fixing to have my third grandchild. Yes. And I'm looking at who has access, and do you have to be buzzed in, and what's the code word? And
so a random case in Parkland Hospital has affected you this much later.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
It's crazy how those things frame your life.
Yeah.
Well, back then, though, there were a lot of illegal adoptions that went on, and the security now, though, they have so many different protocols for kids.
So many layers.
Yeah. But still, you can't have enough.
Yeah.
Well, and, if you're doing something illegal, you're probably not going through most of the security checkpoints anyway. You're trying to do whatever you can.
Yeah, it's not the gun law. You can have the tightest gun laws in the country, but if people want to carry a gun, they're not supposed to. They're going to carry a gun.
Mm-hmm.
So you left youth and went back to Southeast for a few more years.
Went back, trained a little bit. I had a supervisor. I had 3 years of experience in youth ops. I knew a little bit about what I was doing, and we had a new supervisor that walked in, and I assume was trying to make sweet with this young lady that came up there with a question. And she was asking me the question, and he stepped in and said, you don't know what you're talking about. I'll take care of this. I'm not working for you anymore. And went back to patrol and spent year and a half, 2 years. By then, I had enough seniority that I had at least one weekend night off, which helped.
Was that on third watch?
Late nights.
Okay.
Late nights. And they had gotten themselves in a pickle people-wise, and they were short of people up in youth ops, and somebody called and said, hey, do you want to come back? And I said, yeah, I'll come back. And went back to youth ops for just a little bit of time before I went to family violence.
What was that like working late nights with kids at home?
Fine for me.
I
Your
don't
mom
remember
would,
it.
yeah, you don't remember
I was
it.
asleep the whole time.
We made it work. That's why I chose late nights, was because I could go to work at 10 o'clock at night. Kids already in bed. My wife would get up, take the kids to school in the morning, and my responsibility was pick them up in the afternoons.
So that usually sounds like a great plan until you're about 2 years into deep nights, and your eyes burned constantly, and you can't remember which day it is because you worked the day before for the next day.
Oh yeah, had court. Yeah.
Anything that comes out of schedule just completely throws a wrench in, and you. It's hard to recover when you're working nights, but your family's up during the day. And so doing that when you're young with your family, that's probably the best time to get it out. And that's why a lot of people won't promote, on this department. Once you promote, you go back to the bottom of seniority. You go back to working late nights or evenings.
Absolutely.
Which is not conducive to a great family life.
Yeah.
We have, I think Joe said, a 70% divorce rate.
Yeah, it's pushing it.
Yeah.
70%.
And that's in general. If you go to the specialty units like narcotics and vice, where they're dealing with even more so of an underbelly, there's 98, 99%.
Very high.
Yeah.
I don't think I like those numbers.
Says the guy in narcotics.
Well, I don't do any of the cool stuff in narcotics. I just clock in and clock out.
Well, when I hired on, and I've said this before on here, that people would say you're not a real cop unless you've had 2 divorces, which, it's nothing we should celebrate.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
Because that tears a lot of lives apart.
Yeah.
So you wonder at a certain point, is it the personality that is brought into police work, or is it the police work and the culture of everything that changes you while you're here? Because
I think it's both.
I don't think anybody gets into this job and gets out unchanged. It's just a weird lifestyle that you go through, and all of a sudden, I think we all started this job to help people. That's probably what we wrote on our essays to get in, and then you learn that you really don't like some people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that they make it really hard to help them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're usually the ones that they're calling the most often. So,
but also there's officers that are in that same boat.
Of course.
Yeah.
They may not be doing crack or whatever it is down the street corner, but they're doing everything they can to screw up their lives.
Yep.
And I'm pointing the finger at myself. I'm not saying I'm above
You're
any
actually
of that.
pointing your finger at me, but I'm
Yeah.
Do you think your experiences as a detective changed the way you worked as a police officer? when you got back out?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How did that help?
Oh, you pay so much more attention to the reports.
well, you know what's needed.
You
at
know
that
what's
point.
needed. You know how to talk to people. One of the things that fascinated me as a detective in youth ops is nobody was necessarily angry at me. Whereas 3 o'clock in the morning at Southeast, I show up on a call, everybody's angry at you.
Yeah, patrol officer in uniform gets the brunt of the
Yeah.
anger, and it's never really their fault, right?
Yeah.
We don't choose to just come knock on your door in the middle of the night. It's usually because somebody called or something really bad's already happened. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice when you get out of uniform and people look at you as the savior. And I think if you just put on a shirt and tie, everyone thinks you know what you're talking about all of a sudden. So they treat you a little bit differently than they do if you're wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
Or if you walk fast and shuffle papers, you look like you're busy.
Brian Faulkner taught me, who's a retired detective, taught me never leave your desk without something in your hands. He said if you have something in your hands, nobody will ever ask you to do anything.
I always have my phone ready to put it up to my ear when I see somebody coming I don't want to talk to.
Just
It works every time.
Give them the one finger.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm like,
Yeah,
yes,
one
Mr.
minute.
President. Yes, Mr. President. Yes.
Yes, Mr. President. Family violence. You ended up going to family violence from patrol the second time. How did that one work out?
Excellent. Loved family violence. Enjoyed the work. Became a passion. Still is today. You give me a good family. I was talking with a family last week about some domestic violence issues going on in the home.
What was it that you just enjoyed about that?
I think it's one of the places on the department where it was the first place on the department where I felt appreciated for the work that I did from the community. There's a lot of victims that may not want us involved in their lives, but there are a fair number of them that do want us. And for somebody to say thank you and I appreciate your work was very rewarding for me.
Was it as busy then as it is now?
Probably busier. Probably not as many levels of bureaucracy that they have now.
Yeah, there's different forms, and obviously the filing of cases.
There's
and
a lot
everything
more
is
evidence that have to be uploaded.
Digital. Yeah.
But just the constant caseload is
constant. I remember I was tapping one day and was making assignments for 2 or 3 days in a row, and I had probably been up there 8 or 10 years by this time, and I came in and made assignments on a Saturday, and then I had to turn around and come back in on Sunday and make them again. And it was like, it's never going to stop. Every day. And same way in assaults, not the same victims, but every day you can bet your sweet rear end that there's going to be another 20 offenses that need to be given to a detective. Somebody got beat last night, and I'm going to take care of these that I get, but tomorrow there's going to be another just the same number or more.
The big difference between family violence and every other offense is usually there's a known suspect.
Correct.
So you know who your suspect is on those. That's not the hard part. What is the hard part of getting those cases solved?
Trying to get a victim to cooperate. But my argument is why would she want to? There's 4 of us sitting here today, and if we went home tonight and our spouse hit us, are we willing to throw away everything, kids, house, jobs, whatever it is? Are we willing to throw those things away for one hit? Well, no. And then if we're not willing to throw it away for one hit or one slap or one punch, where's the line? Where's the line? And probably one of the things that really helped me working with domestic violence victims was to put myself in their spot and realize that I'm not going to leave either. Okay, then what do we need to do to help you be safe? And that totally changed the way I approach victims. It took it from putting the responsibility on the victim to, okay, what can we do to help?
What commonalities did you see in each of these cases?
Well, they love them. They want to stay with them. They've created family with them. They're dependent on money. They love them.
It's financially, emotionally.
Yeah. I can do something about most of the issues that victims go through. I mean, we can get them to a safe place. We can maybe help them with some financial assistance. We can get them in education. Genesis and the Family Place are great shelters and do a lot of great work. I can't do anything about the love. And, if you're lonely, you're lonely. And, yeah, you may have picked somebody that was bad, that was mean. Maybe we can even use the word evil. But if you love him, ain't nothing I can do to stop that.
Well, also, how many times did you see frequent flyers come through there?
Oh, I'd say probably 80 to 90% of your cases are frequent flyers. They may have never called the police. Very few victims call the police the first time. And if we went home today and our wives slapped us, would we call the police? No.
I would absolutely, Kelly, if you're listening. you get one shot at this. Is there? I know there's a misconception that family violence is mostly a lower socioeconomic issue.
Absolutely not. I know where you're going with this. Absolutely
right.
Not.
So it happens everywhere. Right?
Happens everywhere.
All social classes, all races, all creeds, all relationships. It's there's no bounds to it, right? And I think that's an interesting part of it is, as the detective, you get to see that it is not limited, right? It's everywhere. But that also goes back to what you were saying, trying to get people to leave situations, whether they've become accustomed to a lifestyle or they're in love or there's family involved. That makes it a really difficult position to solve that, because you see what's happening. You've seen this play out before, where it starts with, you said, one hit, and then it gets worse, and then it progresses, and hopefully it doesn't go to the very end before you can intervene or convince them to get a little bit of help.
When we first started doing the lethality, they had a master's level student that was doing the research on it. I mean, statistically, there was no difference in race or monetary that was brought into the home. The difference was the ability to do something about it. So if you live in a home with good structure, you have a safe place to go if things get bad, you have a physician you can go see, then calling the police may not happen. But if you're lower socioeconomic, you don't have a safe place to go, you don't have any food, you don't have diapers, then your resource to stop the violence is to pick up the phone and call the police.
Why did you leave family violence?
So I had I'd spent enough time there that it was starting to work on my mind a little bit. Had a few run-ins with supervisors, and it was time for a change.
I think that a lot of detectives don't realize that they're being affected at the level that they are.
Yeah,
and it's comforting knowing that you actually realized it. And we're like, okay. I probably need to get a different perspective here and just see some different things for a while. But it's easy to stay where you're at when you're comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you've got the freedom of, being the detective, and there's not really the same restrictions for taking time off, and you work at your own pace. A lot of stuff goes on with being a detective, and to go back to patrol, again, we hear it a lot, I'll just go back to patrol, but patrol's a different beast than it used to be.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you get used to that, going back to patrol, it could be refreshing, but it could also, here we go again.
Well, there's a lot of people that I hear that a lot too. They say, well, I'll leave or I'll go back to patrol. Well, who are you really punishing?
Yeah.
You want to go back, and you think the department's gonna
Beg you to
grief
come back.
grief counseling?
Yeah.
Because of that? I mean, really?
Yeah. The department doesn't. They need somebody to answer the calls.
Right.
Yeah.
We've been in business since 1881.
Two things. One is my very first trainer, Les South, told me, when you get tired of doing everything else on the department, go back to patrol, because it's why we all became police.
Yeah.
That's a
good
line.
That's a good line, and it has served me well. The second thing is I had stayed up to date on most of the things that were happening in patrol. So it took me about a week to get acclimated to the car, and then I went, when I left family violence, I went to Southwest for the first time. And really the hardest transition for me was geography. Police work was the same. It was just learning the geography. And when I went back, we didn't have body cameras, and we did have in-car cameras and that stuff. Those all came about in the 5 years I was there.
I remember how big of a deal that was whenever, because at Southeast, you would only, the cars that actually had the dash cams, those were the last cars that would be given out.
Uh-huh.
And then everybody wanted the 94 Chevy, the Corvette engine, and then nobody wanted the cars with the dash cam. And then I remember when the AVLs started up, everybody thought it was Armageddon, and then now body cams, and just the evolution of technology has changed so much, and you have seen so much change in your time on.
When in my first squad car, I can't believe I'm saying this. In my first squad car, we had a radio, and we had a siren, and we had 2 toggle switches. And my first chase, I was working by myself when I got in my first car chase, and that's what was in the car, was 2 toggle switches, a radio, and a
gas pedal.
And a gas pedal.
Who was the U.S. president during that time?
Shut
up.
What was Southwest like?
It was great. Jim Mismash was my partner. We had worked in family violence together. and we went out to Southwest together. And you know, all four of us have had partners before. I work all day with you. And so we just had a great time. Jim and I complimented each other well, and so I could handle him typically when things were going south for him. He could step in and handle things for me when things went south. Got into all kinds of good stuff, lots of laughter. Can't say enough. I'm never going to tell him, but can't say enough good about him.
No, I've run into him several times throughout my career, and he's always looked at very highly. I mean, everybody that works around him is like, yeah, he's the guy that knows everything still, and he's held on to a little bit of that old school. Like he hasn't fully adopted all the new stuff, so he's sharp, man. He's got a lot of stuff going on. We might need to talk to him about coming in and talking about some stories. I mean, it's probably good to branch out from Southeast a little bit.
No.
So again, your experience now was family violence and youth.
Yeah.
So you go back and were you training again?
Back to patrol.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really want to train. I enjoy training, meaning classroom training. I did quite a few years with recruits at the academy, but day to day, the responsibility, the lack of freedom, for lack of a better term, I didn't necessarily enjoy that. So I was a relief trainer the time I was out there.
You spent 5 years at Southwest. Was it at Southwest the whole time? Because we had the bid stuff going on then.
I stayed out there.
Stayed out there.
Mm-hmm.
Was that all on second watch, or did you go back
second
to late
watch?
nights?
No, second watch.
It's a little bit different when you can see all the street signs without a flashlight, huh?
Well, and I worked then. It was fifth watch, so I'd come in at 9 and work till 7, or come in at 10 and work till 6. And loved it. Didn't have to get up super early in the mornings. Got off decent time to have dinner, and I enjoyed the fifth watch.
No, that's probably one of the better shifts right now, is that late afternoon or late morning, early afternoon. You get a little bit of the lull from the morning. You know, nothing really happens until after lunch on second watch. And then on the old second watch shift, when you got off at like 3 o'clock, the kids weren't even out of school yet. So by the time you were back at the station, just you didn't have to deal with them.
Yeah.
Right? So all the troublemakers that were the reason for the 911 calls weren't quite active yet. In 2017, you went back to family violence. Why did you go back?
Needed a change. Tired of patrol. I asked. They said, "Yeah, we'll take you back." Both times I left family violence, the impotence for leaving was they had gotten down. The manpower was too low. The first time I left, I think by the time we left, there were 3 of us that went back to patrol, and by the time we left, there were 12 or 13 detectives drawing. So you were drawing 60 cases a week, and that's putting it all on me. And if something gets screwed up, you're not going to say, "Well, we gave him too many cases." We're going to say, "Why didn't you?" Take the responsibility. So both times I went back, and then the second time, when I went up there, we had 34 detectives, and in a matter of 6 months, we were down to 20. And I said, "If you go below 18, I'm leaving." And they got below 18, and I said, "Okay." I know the beast.
Yeah,
the beast ain't too bad.
Well, and you've done it twice now, right? So well, hey, one more time's not going to hurt here.
Yeah.
Let's just let's do it again. Now, each time you went back, you said it took it about a week.
It takes about a week to kind of get acclimated to any new equipment. Maybe they got a new MDC in there.
LEA portal's in there now at that point, because I remember I was in legal whenever you went back in there.
So the thing I found hardest when I went to family violence the second time was the portal.
Yeah.
And they had also upgraded the video equipment quite a bit, so a lot more recording.
Well, at that time, the DEA was, I think, family violence was the first unit that was loading their own cases into the portal. Mm-hmm. And I did not agree with that, because y'all were the largest and had the most caseload. I would have rather started with a smaller investigative unit and dip our toe in, as opposed to just diving straight in, because there was a lot of problems. Because I'm the one that had to go train family violence and RMS and the LEA portal, and it was a lot. It's a lot to learn, because you're dealing with so many different people, their capacities for technology, right? And then everybody had bad habits they had to break, and y'all it ended up working itself out. But when it started, and Family Violence was the first unit to put all their cases in the LEU portal and file them to the DA's office, it was a lot of problems.
Yeah. I remember towards the end of my time in Family Violence, we had a training with a guy that was in Capers, and they had recently found someone had quite a few cases in their RMS.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy that was teaching us was a Capers detective, and he pulled up it's DME, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pulled up his DME, and he had like, it was an assault, but he had like 4 cell phones and 4 warrants, and I'm thinking,
Ring camera.
yeah, I'm thinking, oh, mine's not that bad. He probably had 80 entries in his DME.
Yeah, and the thing is, with all those problems, there was, RMS rolled out in 2014. And in my opinion, looking back, I got there to legal in 2016. I finally learned RMS in 2017, and then by 2018, I was creating a manual for the whole department. I believe, looking back, you cannot start up any kind of program, train everybody when you first roll it out, and not do any checks on it. And that's what happened.
Yeah,
there was no of all the investigative units, because whenever I started training it, there was 10 different detectives. I could look at 10 different detectives' case files and see it done 8 different ways, and there was no consistency, and that could lead to a myriad of problems, and it did.
Yeah.
And Joe, explain what DME is for the listeners.
Digital media evidence. So it's basically when you first started out. Think about it. When I started out in the late 90s, getting video footage was rare, and then it was VHS tape, and now everybody's got a high def recorder in their hand, and all of that, Ring cameras, surveillance videos, all of that needs to be put in each case file to comply with the Michael Morton Act. And then now we got the Richard Miles Act. That's just digital media evidence is basically, in Sarge, you this is your wheelhouse now.
Yeah, no, and they've changed it since you've left too. Every month they make a new rule, and it changes constantly. Dealing with
all those audits that y'all are doing now. Do you know where that started?
From you finding out these problems.
Yes. So there and it keeps people on the road, but it's still it's like catching water with a net, though. Really, when you're handling that much evidence, and it's better. It's way better than what it was. And these audits, I know, have caught several mistakes before they turn into a bigger problem. So.
Yeah, and just the different programs kind of don't talk to each other.
No,
the
you gotta.
portal doesn't talk to RMS, which doesn't talk to CAD.
Evidence.com. Yeah, so
and you miss a box, you didn't click yes or no, it totally changes. It throws everything off.
Yeah, and then you have the DA on you for
because you're hiding evidence.
Right.
Obviously, yeah.
Do you have any cases from family violence that stand out? Anyone good stories?
I got a case one day on a terroristic threat, and it was of an elderly lady, and the suspect was her son, and they had written him a ticket for a terroristic threat. You can't do that. And she was in her 80s, and in the offense report they noted a threat. So that's not right. So I decided I'd go by the house, check on her. Everything's going to be okay. Go up to the house, knock on the door, and Grandma comes to the door. But Grandma's bleeding from the face. And there's burglar bars, and the burglar bars are locked. And she opens the door, and I tell her who I am, and she says, "Help me." So I try to open the door. Where are the keys? Well, he's here, and he's got them in the other room. Well, is he awake or asleep? Well, he's asleep. Well, great. What are we going to do now? And called patrol, and patrol comes out, and we end up calling the fire department, just getting ready to rip the doors off the hinges to get her out, and he wakes up. And he walks into the den where the door's open, and there's 3 or 4 of us, and we draw down on him, but what are you going to do? And fortunately for us, he said, "I'll open the door," and he opened the door, and we took him into custody. So we prosecuted him, filed on him for injury to the elderly. She bruised up pretty bad, and she died before we could get it to trial. She didn't die from her injuries, but she just died. And think back on what all she had gone through, and that was her only family was her son.
What made you go check on her?
So I learned when I was in youth operations that when you get that twitch, something just doesn't look right, to listen to that. And what I found is most of the time nothing's going on, but I've run across, I had some stalkings when I worked in family violence where just not everything seemed right, and you go over to the house and check on her and he's there. Or when I went back to patrol, Cindy Stewart and somebody came to me and said, "Hey, we think we got a stalking. What do you think about it?" This guy they had a baby together. He'd gone over to the house, and by the time the police got there, whether it was 5 minutes or 3 hours later, was always gone. And I told Cindy, let's just go sit down the street. Of course, they're trying to give out calls and everything else. We mark out on a 5-8. And we hadn't been there more than 5 minutes. And she calls 911 screaming. She doesn't know we're there. And she calls screaming. Said, he's here, he's going to kill me. And we drive up, and Cindy goes to the front door and knock on the door, and I go around the back. Sure as all get out. He's sitting he's out of the car beating on the back door trying to get into the house. And it's just that little, and we all have it. It may not be in family violence, but we all have that thing that says, maybe I need to check on him. Maybe I need to follow up.
When you've got a really heavy caseload, right? It's not light there. So you're juggling a lot of cases, and you're deciding, I'm going to put everything else down for a second. Let me go out and actually do some field detective work.
Yeah.
And it's called instinctive hunch.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
It really is, yeah. Yeah. And I follow the same thing now. You know, whether it's you or JC, you call me and I say, "Hey, how things going?" You say, "Oh, they're all right." Something's not right about the way Kent said that, or there's something not right about the way my son said that. Let's do a little follow up and see what the real is. And sometimes he took me to lunch last week, and he called and said, "Hey," or I saw him and he said, "Let's go to lunch." Something's not right.
Got bad news.
Yeah, you don't know what it's going to be. They have called and said, "Let's go to lunch," and oh, by the way, you're going to be a grandfather. So they've done that to me.
Every time I go to lunch and I don't have a grandchild to give him, he gets upset.
Yeah. I need to see that baby.
You better get on it.
But just following the hunch. And I follow the hunch in a different way now in my job.
Let's talk about what you do now.
Yeah.
What's your new role?
So in 2019, I left patrol. I'm the family services officer for the department.
Explain that, please.
Yeah, which means I work with employees and their families that are seriously ill, injured, or die. Also work with our retirees if we get the opportunity, when they're seriously ill and pass away. The department honors them if they're honorably retired, and so help coordinate that with the families. That is the bulk of what I do. Fortunately, we don't. We average probably 3 to 5, maybe in a bad year, 8 active employees that pass away in some form or fashion. But when it's an active employee, it's a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more to do.
Why did you? Was Mike Miller? Was he the one that you?
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams, your predecessor.
Yeah, he was my predecessor. That early in life, when we had talked earlier today, that cross between ministry and police work has always been with me. Even in the screwed up parts of my life, it's always been with me. And so as time has gone on the department, we worked at Southeast, the Oakleberry, Birchfield. When they got killed, we lost quite a few officers at Southeast alone. Tom Bond, I was out there when Tom and Sherry got. So there have been times in my career where I have kind of gravitated towards working either with families or with officers in those situations. And I had applied for the family services officer position in 2012, and they didn't take me. When I went back to patrol, they didn't take me. Okay. And then in 19, I had done some gone through some personal stuff that changed my life for the better. And I think God finally said, "Okay, you're ready." Walked into the position. I had done enough of it that I knew pretty much what I was doing. Mike brought me along. I worked with Mike for about 7 months before he retired.
Well, there's not like a really good manual for that either. because you're dealing with grieving, a lot of grieving people, a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of angry people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of just walk us through that, how you navigated that, because you're like Mike probably did it different than Reed,
Yeah.
and you do it different from Mike. So how long did it take you to get your own style?
I would probably say so. I lost I lost 3 employees before Mike left. The first 2 were natural, and the third one was in a car crash. The naturals are a little bit easier most of the time because they're expected, and so families have had an opportunity to kind of process. Stage 4 cancer. There's probably it's hard to come up with a different outcome.
Right.
Probably by the time I got to the third one, the officer that died in the car crash.
What was your first line of duty death that you worked?
So my first line of duty was
COVID, right? Pargus?
No, it was Bronk McCoy, and his was not. It was the first COVID death we had, and it was not the first. It was my first death, but it was not a trauma death. My first trauma death was Mitchell Penn.
Can you walk us through that? Because we've had on Tim and Kathy are close to us and close to the ATO, and also we told their story on this show. And actually, after every episode, I can expect a text from Tim or Kathy with critiquing the episode, and I always greatly appreciate it. But can you walk us through how that was for you?
Yeah, so I had been in the unit coming up on 2 years. Foy was my lieutenant at the time, and he called me at 1:30 in the morning and said, "Hey, we've got a deceased officer." I said, "We're at Baylor." So you get up and get dressed. You start running through your checklist of what you need. You never know what you're going to run into at the hospital. And get to the hospital, and Mitchell had been dead probably for about an hour, and they had him in a room. Most of the hospitals have a room where you can view the body. And as I walked in, they were getting ready to go in and view Mitchell. And you just walk in and you tell them who you are, and you give them a business card, and you say, "I'm here. We're going to get to know each other a whole lot better." And then you just kind of start walking them through it. I've done enough of them now that I know we're going to be at the hospital until the ME gets there. I got to get my motor jocks lined up. They've got to run the route. I got to get honor guard there. You got to keep chiefs informed.
Keep them in line.
Keep them in line. Yeah. Foy is. I love you, Chief Foy. Is great. Was great about being the hard part. Hey, this is what I need, and he would step up and do it. And Andrea Van, who's my supervisor right now, let me tell you, you 2 sergeants in a room, y'all got to go a ways to get to beat Andrea. She's just fantastic.
She's a good person.
Yeah,
she's so quick with responses too.
Yeah,
as soon as you ask her for something, you get it right back.
Yeah, she's my right hand person now. So she's my go-to. If I walk out of a room and I need something, she's there and takes care of it immediately for me if we can.
How do you turn off your own emotions in a situation like that you're dealing with? Because I have a problem seeing other people grieve, and it bothers me. Even doing this show, I see it a lot of it. How do you turn that off and find that strength for them to get through it? Because you have a task to do.
Yeah. Probably one of the things I learned a lot in all my positions that really helped me with my job now. But one of the things I learned was I don't have to be in a hurry. And so I'll tell my families at the hospital, we have one decision to make. We don't have to make it today. We got to make it in the next 24 to 48 hours. And that's to decide on a funeral home. So we slow things down greatly. I don't get in a hurry. I go at their pace. As far as my introspection, I think 2 or 3 big things. First of all is I am very comfortable in my relationship with Christ. So in the grand scheme of things, I know that this is going to work out. not going to work out the way I want it to, but it's going to work out. That's not going to work out the way the family wants it to, but it's going to work out. I have wonderful resources. The one that's sitting over here next to the left of me has shown up on a couple of scenes. He's always supportive, always, asking me questions. Michelle, my wife, my daughter, Kristen, they are fantastic about asking me, what's going on and what do I need. And as much as I hate to give Jim Mishmash credit, he'll call me and he'll say, "You okay?" "Yeah." "I mean, are you okay?" And he'll in a very Jim Mishmash way, give me an opportunity to talk about what's going on. I've got, from my days in domestic violence, I have lots of LPCs that I can reach out to and vomit all over them and talk about what the things I've seen. And
it seems like you've mastered juggling all the logistics of everything that goes on with this while still remaining compassionate, and that's a tremendous skill.
But I'm not afraid to cry. Chris Jackson, who died 4 years ago. Chris was a friend of mine from working days at Southwest, and Jim was actually the one that called me and said, "Hey, we're en route. We got doing CPR on an officer." And I said, "Well, who is it?" It was quiet. I said, "Jim, who is it?" And he said, "It's Chris." I said, "Okay." I'd been up in North Dallas and was on my way home and went straight to the hospital. And the first thing I see is Jim drops out of the ambulance and they pull Chris out and they're thumping on his chest. Well, we know what that means. And so, and that's probably the one that's affected me more than any other. In 25 or 30 minutes, I'm starting to think, "Oh, crap, what is this? What's this pressure right here?" And
it's grief.
It's just grief. Yeah, it's just bald grief. And so you start crying and you deal with it. And some families are easier to be human with, and some families you're a little more stoic with. Tim and Kathy and Noel, about 6 weeks after Mitchell died, they were doing a fundraiser and we were out front talking, and we had another death of an employee. And there was a lot of contrast between the families. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting teary-eyed talking to them about the differences in the families, without telling them, of course, what we were talking about, but just how one family handles it and another one doesn't, and the pressure that can bring. We've had some interesting scenarios.
We all have the same end, no matter who we are.
Oh, absolutely.
No, how much we make or what rank we have. We all have the same.
We're all going to die.
We're all going to die. We all have the same Act 3. What are some things that officers' families can prepare for down the road that they could get things in order, that it would help them greatly?
Probably the biggest challenge I see are families who do not communicate and don't have an idea of what to do or how to do it. And I can walk you through the how to do it for most stuff, but they've never had a conversation with their wife or husband. "I want to be cremated," or "I don't want to be cremated," or "I don't care what happens to me." I think I'm probably at about 25 active employees that have passed away in my time out doing this job. And probably 19 of those I've been at funeral homes, and families have said, "I don't know what he wants," or "I don't know what she wants." And those things can be solved by a simple conversation. My kids know that if I TKO here in the room, bring me back, try. And then don't you put me on a machine that's going to breathe for me. And I think having those conversations, what you want to do with your kids, our most recent passing, Blow got on a airplane and to go see his family and never made it.
Right.
So have those conversations.
And also do the small things, update your
Oh yeah, yeah. We're not even
Beneficiary.
talking about that. Yeah, if we want to
Yeah.
talk about that, yeah, wills,
Yes.
DPA beneficiary form, banks.
It's no longer you pass away. It's no longer your problem, but there are many people that are waiting. They're there, dealing with grief, and there's so many unknowns because one, as you mentioned, you don't talk about it, and two, from a legal standpoint, certain documents were not completed or updated that now your loved ones have to deal with as well.
Yeah, have to deal with the consequences. Yeah, yeah. We've seen employees not fill out documents that were $100,000 piece of paper, and they chose not to fill out the paper.
You know, I could tell you from the Assist the Officer Foundation side, and also knowing so many people, the DPA, that of all the heartache on top of heartache, the not updating your forms and changing beneficiaries has caused a lot of people you care a lot about.
Yeah,
There's been cases out there that, you know, an ex-wife that you hadn't been married to for years is the last beneficiary.
yeah. I was. We had an officer that passed away and had created a child with another person. They had lived together for 5 or 10 years, and he ends up passing away and has his baby's mama assigned on his DPA benefit or his city benefit. And but they weren't married. They were never married. And they had broken up about a year before he passed away. And so we're pulling all of his information, and she was the mother of his child, and I don't think he regretted doing it, but he never did it. And, you know, went over and talked to the city attorney and said you can't unmarry somebody that you've never been married to. And so she got the benefit.
Yeah, that's a lot of. I mean, and if you walk over to the DPA right now, there is a sign right in the front door that says "Change your beneficiary,"
Yeah,
and that is something so simple.
yeah.
Because as we already pointed out, the divorce rate and is pushing 70%.
Yeah.
So it's likely that you might have to do something like that.
Yeah.
But just I can't harp on it enough. Just do. You know, when we're all gone, we're gone, and everybody around us is going to be grieving and trying to pick up the pieces and moving forward. Let's make it a little easier on them to pick up those pieces, so you're not dealing with such grief and heartache and fighting and ruining relationships that are left behind.
And I'll tell you my experience with the families who have it together. It is so much. It removes so much pressure from the family internally when they've had the conversations, when they have the will set up, when the beneficiary forms are correct. Well, it's one of the things about Mitchell was Mitchell had spent a little bit of time in our unit as a pre-hire, and Rose, one of our ladies that worked in the office, harped on him about it. And he had gotten married about 9 months before he was killed.
Yes.
And all of his paperwork was done. And he was a 2-year officer.
Yeah.
But it just made it so much smoother for the Pentons.
And I think that's something our department, because that's some education that it really doesn't cost us any money to put out.
Yeah.
We need, you know what I mean, to do that. It's important to know.
So if you made me Grand Poobah and I had control of everybody, every sergeant would sit down with their officers and make sure their IWM sit down with them. All right, you only have one person. I want 2 more there. Because it's not uncommon for me, especially on the younger officers, but I even have chiefs that haven't updated stuff. But, okay.
You listening, Foy? No,
Yeah. Foy is a very – Foy and Moore are both advocates for getting it done right.
Yeah.
But, hey, you got to put 2 people down. All right. You know.
Well, one thing that that we've seen before is, and I know you've seen it, is they'll have the city information changed, but they don't do the association, and that's different.
Yeah.
And that could be problematic.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about something you touched on earlier, you know, and you've mentioned it quite a few times since we've been sitting here, is your faith.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that and how important that is to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Accepted Christ when I was 14. You know, one of the things that we haven't talked about is I'm in recovery and for some integrity issues, and my faith was with me the whole time. And until I got my recovery issues under control, my life was in disarray. And when I got them under control, in that part of that process, is I lost my first wife, and I divorced, and rightfully so. I'm don't fault her at all for that. But Christ is the one who walked me through it, kept me balanced. I'm a part of a program called Celebrate Recovery. I'll give a shout out to them. That it made life so much better for me. And that's what I carry when I'm dealing with families, is that I know, for me personally, I know where I'm going when I die, and I want to be able to share that with people if they're willing to listen.
No, I love that. And thanks for being so open and honest and vulnerable with that, because, this, not that anybody listens to the show anyway, but I appreciate that, because I think a lot of people I think we can learn from others.
Yeah, and one of the things I've learned across life, but certainly in the position that I'm in, and looking at our department, we all screw up.
Absolutely.
Every one of us screw up. And I think that's probably one of the things early on in my career that I really struggled with, was trying to be perfect. And I wasn't being perfect then, but in my mind, thinking I was perfect. And none of us are perfect. And some of us screw up a little bit, and some of us screw up a whole lot. Some of us screw up and, get fired or get demoted, or maybe it's not that traumatic. Maybe some of us, I'm thinking about some recent officers that have ruined their career. Dude, we're all there. We just may not be doing something quite as bad, but we all screw up, and forgiveness and grace and all those things are super important.
I have to give you some props, because, the wellness unit is still a relatively new unit. And what we do here, what we talk about, are a lot of things we cannot talk about, right? And there's we work behind the scenes in this unit on a lot of things and have a lot of issues. But one thing I could say, that seeing you in action at horrific scenes, I've seen you multiple times at line of duty, death scenes, horrific scenes, and also seen you at the hospital when Michelle Fletcher passed.
Mm-hmm.
You really, I kind of watch you from afar and kind of in awe, just saying, man, he's got a process down that's extremely impressive in a very difficult situation. So it's really refreshing to see, and the department's really going to have a loss whenever you finally decide to leave.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
those are very humbling words.
It's not an easy job.
Yeah, and I feel very called to it. Absolutely called to it.
Clearly. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about your grandkids?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got young Whitten. I have Miss Tori, and I have a third on the way. Don't know if that'll be all, but if it is, that's okay. So when I first had Whitten, he lived with me, and there was already an incredible difference between my two children, and my grandchild. And I think my very uneducated thought process is I don't have to worry about the day-to-day with my grandkids, and that frees me up to be a papa. JC here has to worry about the bill. He has to worry about the house. He has to worry about that big pool he has. Mm-hmm. And I just get to go to the house and spoil the heck out of the kid and love on him. I was listening to a podcast a couple of years ago, and they said the responsibility should be the responsibility of every grandparent is to love their grandchildren and be on their team 110%. And I am all for that.
Well, speaking, there's one thing that crossed my mind that I want to ask you about your son. How much of an influence were you whenever he decided he wanted to do this?
I guess that's a question for me. Well, Well, I can say I was not always drawn to this profession. That was not what I set out to do for the majority of my school life growing up. What I thought I wanted to do was, I was studying to be an engineer.
At what school?
At Texas A&M University, Gigamaggies.
There you go.
And so that was where I thought my life was going to go. And then I was in a career day development, basically, and they had an engineer come in and talk about what he wanted to do, and just had a realization sitting there that I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think this is the path that I want for myself. But if that was my plan and that was no longer the plan, I didn't really know where to look. But I knew I wanted to kind of not always, be trapped in an office doing data entry stuff. I'd done some of that in college and knew that wasn't going to be it. But I knew I wanted to do something active and enjoy going to work every day. And for most of what I remember of my dad's career was the family violence years. He was in youth and, Southeast and all that, but from what I remember was the family violence years. And I always remember he always went to work with a positive attitude. Every complaint that you can have about this job, and there are several, he never vocalized them to me. So I never was under the impression that this job had any downsides. It was all fun. And so I
shielded you from that.
So when I finally, had decided, hey, I think this is something that I want to, explore, I nervously brought it up to him, my mom, because I knew my mom probably wouldn't be too keen on me doing it, and also I was going to this great university where I was going to be an engineer, and you don't have to have a engineering degree to be a police officer. So am I gonna have to leave school basically to pursue this career instead of essentially wasting money, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So I was nervous about that, and I was nervous on the reaction in general. But he had a very positive reaction. He hinted that I should be a firefighter. Looking back on it, probably should have pushed a little bit harder, maybe. Or
yeah, I don't know if you have a strong enough mustache to join
them. But ever since I got the job, I had a similar experience he did, where it was just, I had a very, and knowing what I know now, a very sheltered life. I had good parents who treated me well, got on to me when I deserved it, gave me all the tools to be successful in life. So if I failed, it's on me, not on them, because they did their job.
Sure.
So when I came into the, police work and got to see, people who weren't as fortunate as me, it was like he described earlier in the podcast, it was eye-opening, and there was a learning curve there of trying to understand this. But since I got into it, I've, developed my own path, but there have been many a times where I get on a call or get to, I get in the middle of something. I'm like, oh no, I don't know what to do next, but it's 3:00 in the morning and I don't know what to do. Well, I know who will answer my phone if I call. And so, he's had many questions at 3:00 in the morning on, some things that weren't even necessarily, major, but just, hey, I don't know what to do, Dad. And he just walks me through it. And it's been great. I've never felt like I've been alone on this department. So I've always, even if I screw up in the worst of ways, I know that there is one person that will never leave me. And that's you.
That's right.
So I've been doing this for 13 years now, and I don't see an end in sight. I still enjoy coming to work every day, love who I work with, and it's been great. And then I guess to piggyback kind of off of what you were saying, I'm kind of monologuing now, but you'd mentioned at scenes, seeing him work.
Yeah.
I'd say, I've seen him work before. He's always been kind of, the authority figure in my life for a long portion of it. But he always kind of knew what to do in moments of crisis. And now I've been on longer. But when we went to Burks's, his shooting, I was working at the time. Actually, we happened to be listening to the radio in the office when it happened. And so I ended up calling you and letting you know, hey,
me up.
I don't know what I heard on the radio, but I think I heard that 3 officers are shot. And so he got up, but then I went to the hospital to, be with everyone. And there were 3 stars there. There were 2 stars there. There was brass all over the place, but there was no question who was in charge of that scene. And that was my dad. And you could see him work. He's, like you said, he's got a job to do, but people are listening to him. And it's because he knows what he's doing, and he's managing the emotional, the practical, the procedure of it all, but also having to manage all of us. And I personally didn't know Burks, but there were a lot of officers there that did. And so just seeing him work in that capacity, it was again really impressive.
He is the calm in the storm,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I get upset, something's gone wrong. That's what I tell people.
Yeah. Well,
and it does happen to me. It
of course.
doesn't happen to me.
You're human, John.
Yeah.
How proud are you of him?
Oh, I mean, what more could you say? Is everybody gives me a hard time and says, "Well, do you salute him now?" And I said, "Not in this lifetime."
No, people ask the same of me. They say, "Do you make him call you Sarge?" And I said, "I don't."
Big Sarge.
Yeah, yeah. I think even if I told him to do something and he said no, I don't think there's anyone who would back me up and saying, "No, you're right. He just made a direct order from a supervisor. He has to do it." No, that's not how it works.
That wouldn't go far in IED without that control number.
No.
When he was a senior at A&M, he got his Aggie ring. This goes back to the fireman thing. We'd been talking about it, and he'd scheduled their PT test, I think it was.
No, it was the first. It was the written test. It was
it's a written
test.
test.
It was the one time a year DFR did their first test. They only tested once a year at that time. This is 2012, and it was scheduled for. It was March. Honestly, I want to say it was March 2012. And that was my ring day when I was supposed to get my ring. All of my friends were supposed to get our rings. It's a big deal at A&M. And so I had a decision to make, was to miss this ring day to go take this fireman's test. And I was like, nah, I'll go get my ring.
It was meant to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so once that was, gone for a year, then it was, okay, well, I'm going to try for the police force.
Is this the only police department that you tried for?
This was the first one, and like I said, it timed out well where I graduated and then got in a few months later. So I didn't have to, go to Pasadena or anywhere else. It just kind of worked out. I would have had this not worked out. But yeah.
We're always hiring, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, can you tell us about Kristen?
Yeah, so Kristen's my daughter. She did not take the police route, which was okay with Dad.
Yeah.
She works for a company here in Dallas and is a coordinator for them. She's 32 and soon to be giving my second grandchild. Good close relationship with her. When I went through my troubled history back in 2015 when everything kind of came to light, my children had 2 different reactions. They very rightfully had cut off the relationship and said, "Dad, we need time away from you." And JC, I guess about a month after everything had come to light, and he called me and he said, "Dad, we got to go have lunch." And of course, it's not a lunch that you're looking forward to. And went and had lunch with him. And, one of the things he said to me that has stuck with me was, "Dad, you've always been there for me. I'll always be there for you." And when you've screwed your life up like I had and, lost my marriage, those words were huge. And then my daughter's reaction was anger, but she didn't talk about it. And it wasn't until probably a year later, she and I were on a trip to Colorado, and so it was just her and I in the car. And that faucet got turned on, and it gave us an opportunity to talk about what had happened and the process. And so two totally different kids, and both hold such a special place in my heart.
It goes back to communication.
Yeah, and sometimes communication sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you don't have it, it really sucks.
Yeah, it really sucks, yeah. Yeah, and that's in the role I have now. That's what I see is when you don't have the communication, and when you do, it just doesn't get as much attention.
John, I have a final question for you. You've been police for 40 years. What are you most proud of, and what do you want to be remembered as?
Ironically, none of it's really police work related. I want to be known as a person who put family and friends first. And I've messed that up, especially with my family. So that's a bitter pill to swallow sometimes. But I can certainly do better and love on Michelle. I have some incredible stories, man. As I was writing this, I was thinking of all the things I wanted to say and could say and couldn't say. Got some great skills. They're not employable for anybody else. It's kind of like a criminal justice degree, just doesn't really mean much, but some really good skills. And then I think people allowing me into, maybe this would be the one thing that's police related directly, is people allowing me into a very special part of their lives, and they don't even know they're doing it. But have made some incredible friends as I've gone through the work that I do. I want to be remembered more than anything else as a person who sought Christ, and that's hard because I let the world get in the way. But I want to be remembered for someone who loves Christ. I want to be known as a good and faithful servant. I always want to try to do better, which leads to the last thing, and that is that we all screw up, like we talked about a few minutes ago. Forgiveness and mercy are wonderful things in grace.
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey Mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, and I'll pull you up. Life leaves you heavy when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder, together we'll run up from the bottom, yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey Mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey Mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far, for the gold and the blue, I'll never give up.